I am Sylvia, 31 years old, and I have always been the responsible sister. My engagement party should have been perfect. Jack had just slipped the ring on my finger when my younger sister Alison stood up clinking her glass. I am 3 months pregnant, she announced to the stunned room. Then she looked directly at me, smirked, and said, "Sorry, guess I stole the spotlight again." Everyone cheered except me and Jack. It was not the first time, but I decided it would be the last. Before I tell you what we did next, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. Growing up with Alison was complicated from the start. 4 years my junior, she arrived when I was just starting to enjoy being the center of attention in our family. I still remember the day my parents brought her home, a tiny bundle with rosy cheeks and big blue eyes that immediately captivated everyone who saw her. Our mother Diana was particularly enchanted by Alison. Mom had always been a perfectionist, from her immaculate home to her carefully curated social life. She saw something in Alison that reflected her own desire for admiration, a natural charm that drew people in. As for me, I was more like my father Thomas, practical, hardworking, and perhaps a little too serious for my mother's taste. The pattern started early. When I was 7 and Alison was 3, I had prepared a drawing for my parents' anniversary. I had spent days working on it, carefully coloring inside the lines. But when I presented it at dinner, Alison suddenly spilled her juice all over herself, crying dramatically. The drawing was forgotten as everyone rushed to comfort her. Looking back, even at that young age, I noticed the slight smile on her face as she was being consoled. This pattern repeated throughout our childhood. My 10th birthday party, Alison had a tantrum because she wanted to blow out my candles. Mom let her do it, just to keep the peace. My middle school orchestra recital, Alison complained of stomach pains right before my solo, causing my parents to miss it as they took her to the bathroom. She was perfectly fine afterward, happily eating ice cream. But the real turning point came on my 16th birthday. I had been looking forward to it for months. Dad had promised to teach me how to drive in his cherished vintage Mustang, something we had planned together for years. Friends were invited, decorations hung, and a special cake ordered. Everything was set until Alison, then 12, announced she had been selected for a prestigious dance competition scheduled for the same day as my birthday. Mom immediately insisted we reschedule my celebration to attend Alison's competition. Dad tried to argue my case, saying, "Diana, this is an important milestone for Sylvia. We made plans months ago." But Mom was immovable. "Alison needs our support. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Sylvia can celebrate another day she understands." I did not understand, but I swallowed my disappointment as I had done countless times before. Dad took me driving the following weekend, but the special feeling was gone. The party was eventually held 2 weeks later, but half my friends could not attend on the new date. What hurt most was seeing Alison's smug expression when Mom announced the change of plans. That was when I realized this was not accidental. My sister enjoyed seeing me sidelined. High school brought more of the same. When I was accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship, an achievement that had required years of hard work, Alison somehow managed to break her ankle the day my acceptance letter arrived. My news became a footnote in the family drama. My college graduation ceremony should have been my moment. I had worked 2 jobs while maintaining a 3.8 GPA in business administration. But Alison called Mom just as we were leaving for the ceremony, claiming she had been in a minor car accident. It was nothing serious, not even a scratch on her, but it delayed my parents enough that they missed my walk across the stage. When they finally arrived, Mom spent most of the time on the phone with Alison, reassuring her. Even in our adult years, the pattern continued. When I got my first big promotion at 27, Alison announced she was moving to Paris for a modeling opportunity. My promotion dinner turned into a going-away party for her. The modeling job fell through after just 2 months, but by then my achievement was long forgotten. Through it all, I tried to understand her. I invited her for coffee, attempted to establish a relationship separate from our family dynamics, asked her about her hopes and dreams. Sometimes she would respond positively, and I would think we were making progress. But inevitably, she would revert to her competitive behavior, making snide comments about my appearance, my career choices, or my relationships. Dad was the only one who truly saw what was happening. He would often find me after one of these incidents, give me a hug, and say, "Your time will come, Sylvia. Just keep being you." His support was what kept me going, what helped me maintain my sense of self-worth, despite being constantly overshadowed. When Dad died of a sudden heart attack 2 years ago, I lost my biggest supporter. At the funeral, I was heartbroken, not just because I had lost my father, but because I had lost the one person in our family who truly saw me. Even in grief, Alison managed to take center stage, her dramatic sobbing drawing attention and sympathy from all the attendees, while I sat quietly devastated. In the months following Dad's death, I made renewed efforts to connect with Alison. I thought perhaps the loss would bring us closer, help us forge the sisterly bond I had always wanted. I invited her to dinner, sent thoughtful gifts, checked in regularly. But each attempt was met with indifference or worse, disdain. When I suggested grief counseling together, she laughed and said, "Some of us process emotions naturally, Sylvia. We do not need to pay someone to tell us how to feel." Despite the years of disappointment, I kept trying. Maybe it was the promise I had made to Dad before he died. Look after each other. Or maybe it was simply my stubborn hope that someday things would change. But with each rejection, that hope grew a little dimmer. I met Jack Thompson on a rainy Tuesday evening at Cornerstone Cafe, a small coffee shop near my office in downtown Chicago. I had stopped in to grab a cup of tea before heading home, trying to wait out the downpour. The place was crowded, and when a deep voice asked if he could share my table, I looked up to see the most genuine smile I had ever encountered. "Of course," I said, moving my laptop aside. "Though I should warn you, I am currently drowning in quarterly projections that make absolutely no sense." He laughed, setting down his coffee. "Then we are in the same boat. I am trying to figure out why my architectural design is being rejected by a client who specifically asked for exactly what I delivered." That casual conversation turned into 2 hours of talking about everything from work frustrations to favorite books. Jack was easy to talk to, attentive, thoughtful, and refreshingly straightforward. By the time the rain stopped, we had exchanged numbers and made plans for dinner that weekend. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood I had never explored. Jack had chosen it because the owner was a client of his architectural firm, but also because, as he put it, they make pasta the way it is supposed to be made, with love and zero rush. Dinner stretched into a walk along the lakefront, where Jack told me about growing up in Michigan with 3 older brothers, his decision to become an architect despite his family's fishing business tradition, and his dream of one day designing sustainable housing communities. I found myself sharing things I rarely talked about: my complicated relationship with Alison, my struggles to find my place in my family, my grief over losing my father. What struck me most was how Jack listened. Not the polite waiting for your turn to speak kind of listening, but truly hearing what I was saying. When I told him about Allison's pattern of overshadowing my moments, he did not minimize it or offer generic platitudes. Instead, he asked thoughtful questions and validated my feelings. "It sounds like you have been invisible in your own life story for a long time," he said. "That must be incredibly painful." No one had ever put it quite like that before, and something in me shifted. For the first time, I felt truly seen. Our relationship developed naturally from there. Weekend hikes in nearby state parks, cooking disasters in my small kitchen, long conversations about our hopes for the future. Jack was passionate about his work, but also knew how to create balance. He taught me to kayak on Lake Michigan, and I introduced him to my love of classic films at the Vintage Movie Theater downtown. 6 months in, I knew this was different from any relationship I had ever had. Jack was kind, but not a pushover. He loved his family, but had established healthy boundaries with them, something I had never managed to do with mine. He encouraged me to pursue a certification in project management I had been considering, but hesitating to commit to. "You deserve to invest in yourself," he told me. Meeting my family was inevitably a milestone we had to cross. I prepared Jack as best I could, warning him about Mom's perfectionism and Allison's competitive nature. He squeezed my hand and said, "I am excited to see where you came from, all parts of it." The dinner was at my mother's house, a colonial-style home in the suburbs where I had grown up. Mom had prepared an elaborate meal as she always did for company. She took to Jack, immediately impressed by his career and his polite manners. "An architect, how fascinating," she gushed. "And your firm is working on that new downtown development. I read about that in the Tribune." Alison arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in a dress that was perhaps a bit too formal for a family dinner. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Jack, and I recognized the look immediately. It was the same one she got when she spotted something she wanted to acquire. "So you are the mysterious boyfriend," she said, extending her hand to Jack longer than necessary. "Sylvia has been keeping you all to herself." Throughout dinner, Alison directed most of her conversation toward Jack, asking about his work, his interests, laughing a little too hard at his jokes. I had seen this behavior before with other boyfriends, but Jack remained firmly attentive to me, including me in every conversation, his hand often finding mine under the table. Later that night, as we drove back to the city, I asked him what he thought. "Your mom is trying very hard to be the perfect hostess," he said diplomatically. Then, after a pause, "And your sister, she seems to be looking for validation in ways that are not healthy for her or for you." In the weeks that followed, Alison found reasons to text Jack directly, asking for recommendations for an architect friend who did not exist, sending links to articles about buildings she thought might interest him. He always responded politely, but briefly, always including me in the conversation by mentioning her messages to me or responding in our group chat instead of directly to her. Then came the weekend at Lake Geneva. Mom had suggested a family getaway at a lakeside cabin to enjoy the last of summer. Jack and I arrived Friday evening to find that Alison had already claimed the best bedroom and had set up an elaborate outdoor dining area for everyone to enjoy. Throughout the weekend, she found excuses to pull Jack away, asking for help with the boat, needing an opinion on the sunset from a particular viewpoint that required a walk through the woods. By Sunday, I was exhausted from maintaining my composure. As we packed to leave, Jack pulled me aside. "You know what I was thinking," he said, his eyes serious. "I was thinking that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, but I do not want another weekend like this one." My heart froze, thinking he was ending things. But then he continued, "I want to marry you, Sylvia, and I want us to build a life where you are never made to feel small or overlooked again." He did not have a ring yet. This was not how he had planned to propose, he admitted. But the weekend had clarified everything for him. He wanted me, and he wanted me to know that he saw the dynamics at play and would never participate in them. I said yes through tears of joy and relief. We decided to wait to announce it until he had a proper ring and to use the time to discuss what kind of wedding we wanted. 2 weeks later, Jack proposed properly on the rooftop of his firm's building at sunset, with the Chicago skyline stretching out around us, and a vintage emerald ring that had belonged to his grandmother. We decided to have an engagement party before diving into wedding planning. I was nervous about telling my family, particularly Alison, but I was also determined that this time would be different. This was my moment with the man I loved, and I would not let it be hijacked. The engagement party was set for October 15th at La Fontaine, an upscale French restaurant with a private event space overlooking the river. I had saved for months to afford it, wanting everything to be perfect. The guest list included our closest friends, Jack's family, who would drive in from Michigan, my mother, and Alison. The week before the party, I met Alison for coffee, determined to head off any potential issues. "I am really looking forward to celebrating with you on Saturday," I said, trying to sound casual. "It means a lot that you will be there." Alison stirred her latte, looking distracted. "Of course I will be there. We are sisters, are not we?" I took a deep breath. "We are. And that is why I wanted to talk to you before the party. This is a really special night for me and Jack, and I am hoping we can all focus on celebrating our engagement." She looked up, her expression unreadable. What exactly are you trying to say, Sylvia? I am asking for your support, I said directly. No drama, just a nice evening where Jack and I can share our happiness with the people we love. Allison's face softened slightly. You really think I would cause drama at your engagement party? Give me some credit. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am happy for you. Really. I wanted to believe her. Maybe this time would be different. The night of the party arrived and everything was beautiful. The restaurant had arranged the room exactly as I had envisioned: soft lighting, elegant floral centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus, a table for gifts, and a small area where Jack and I could address our guests. I wore a silver cocktail dress that Jack said brought out the gray in my eyes, and he looked handsome in a charcoal suit. Guests began arriving at 7. Jack's parents, William and Elizabeth, warm and unpretentious people who had welcomed me into their family from the beginning. His brothers and their wives bearing gifts and hearty congratulations. My colleagues from the marketing firm where I worked. Jack's fellow architects and friends. My mother arrived wearing an expensive new dress, making a point to tell everyone who complimented her where she had bought it. She seemed genuinely happy, though, giving me a rare hug and saying, "Your father would have been so proud." Alison came in last, wearing a form-fitting red dress that immediately drew attention. She air-kissed me, whispered, "Congratulations," and then moved through the room greeting everyone as if she were the hostess. Dinner was served at 8, a 3-course meal I had carefully selected. Wine flowed, conversation hummed pleasantly, and for once I felt completely happy and at ease. Jack's best friend David gave a touching toast about how Jack had changed since meeting me, how he had never seen his friend so content. Then my best friend Marie stood up. Marie and I had been friends since college, and she had witnessed many of the Alison episodes over the years. She raised her glass and looked directly at me. "To Sylvia and Jack," she said. "Sylvia, I have known you for more than a decade now, and I have never seen you as radiant as you are tonight. You deserve every happiness, and in Jack, you have found someone who sees you for the amazing, kind, brilliant woman you are." She turned to Jack. "Jack, you are getting not just a wife, but a woman who will always put your partnership first, who will support your dreams as fiercely as she pursues her own. You two balance each other beautifully, and I cannot wait to see the life you build together." The room applauded as Jack and I shared a kiss. Then Jack stood up, taking my hand to pull me up beside him. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," he began. "When I met Sylvia, I was not looking for a relationship, but sometimes the best things in life are the ones you do not see coming." He looked at me, his eyes full of love. "Sylvia, you are the most genuine person I have ever known. You approach life with such honesty and grace, even when it is difficult. You have shown me what real partnership looks like: supporting each other, challenging each other to grow, and always having each other's backs." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I know I already proposed, but I wanted to make it official in front of everyone we love." He opened the box, revealing a diamond-encircled band that matched my engagement ring. "This is a promise band to go with your engagement ring. A promise that I will always see you, hear you, and cherish you for exactly who you are." Tears filled my eyes as he slipped the ring onto my finger alongside the emerald. The room erupted in applause and cheers. And that was when it happened. A chair scraped loudly against the floor as Alison stood up, tapping her knife against her wineglass. The room quieted, all eyes turning to my sister. "I also have an announcement to make," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent room. "I was going to wait, but seeing all this love in the room, it just feels like the right time." She placed her hand on her stomach, which I suddenly realized had a slight, barely noticeable curve. "I am 3 months pregnant." The room erupted again, this time with gasps and congratulations directed at Alison. My mother immediately rushed to her side, tears streaming down her face. "I am going to be a grandmother," she exclaimed. I stood frozen, Jack's hand tightening around mine. Alison looked directly at me, a familiar smirk playing on her lips. "Sorry, guess I stole the spotlight again," she said, just loud enough for me to hear over the commotion. Marie caught my eye from across the room, her expression a mix of disbelief and outrage. Jack's mother looked confused, glancing between me and Alison with a furrowed brow. What struck me as odd, beyond the obvious inappropriate timing, was that Alison's boyfriend, Marcus, was nowhere to be seen. They had been dating for about a year, but he had begged off the engagement party, claiming a work commitment. Now I wondered if there was more to his absence. Jack leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Do you want to leave?" I nodded suddenly, unable to bear another minute in that room where once again my moment had been eclipsed. We made our excuses to a few close friends, claiming an early flight the next day for a weekend getaway we had planned. Most people were still gathered around Alison, so our departure went largely unnoticed. In the Uber home, I finally let the tears fall. "I cannot believe she did that," I said, my voice breaking. "Actually, I can believe it. That is the worst part. It is exactly what she always does." Jack held me close. "I saw it this time. Everyone saw it. That was not about sharing joy, that was about taking yours." When we got home, I kicked off my heels and collapsed on our couch, emotionally exhausted. What am I supposed to do now? Call her out? Pretend it did not happen? I am so tired of this cycle. Jack sat beside me, his expression thoughtful. "I think," he said slowly, "that we need to change the rules of the game." After the engagement party disaster, Jack and I stayed up most of the night talking. I cycled through emotions: hurt, anger, resignation, and finally a strange sense of clarity. "Do you know what bothers me most?" I said, curled up on our couch in pajamas, a far cry from the elegant dress I had carefully chosen hours earlier. "It is not even that she took the attention. It is that she knew exactly what she was doing. That stole the spotlight again comment proves it." Jack nodded, his expression serious. "She has been doing this your entire life, and from what you have told me, there have never been consequences." He was right. Through all the birthdays, graduations, and achievements she had overshadowed, I had always responded the same way, with quiet hurt and eventual forgiveness. I had never confronted her directly, never set boundaries, never changed my behavior in response to hers. "What if," Jack said carefully, "we change our wedding plans?" I looked at him confused. "Change them how?" "Well, we were planning a traditional church wedding next June, right? 8 months from now, with your mom and Alison deeply involved in the planning." He took my hand. "Which would put it right around when Alison will be having her baby." The realization hit me. She will find a way to make it about her baby. Either she will be enormously pregnant at our wedding and need special accommodations, or she will have just had the baby and need everyone to coo over it, or she will be anxious about leaving the baby. Every scenario I imagined ended with our wedding day becoming secondary to Alison's motherhood journey. "Exactly," Jack said. "So what if we do not give her the chance? What if we have a small private wedding soon? Just us, my family, and a few close friends. We do not tell your mother or Alison until it is done." The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. "You mean elope?" "Not exactly elope, more like a carefully planned private ceremony. We can still have the celebration we want, just without the audience that does not have our best interests at heart." I thought about our original wedding plan. We had chosen St. Andrew's Church, where my parents had married. The reception was to be at the Lakeview Hotel ballroom. We had already started discussing guest lists, menu options, and color schemes. My mother had begun collecting bridal magazines and sending me links to wedding dresses. "But what about all the plans we have started, the deposits?" I asked. Jack shrugged. "We have not put down any non-refundable deposits yet. And honestly, even if we had, would not it be worth it to have one day that is truly, completely ours?" I thought about how it would feel to walk down the aisle knowing that nothing could interrupt or overshadow our moment. No Alison drama, no mother fussing about appearances, just pure, unfiltered joy with people who genuinely supported us. We could do it at Starlight Point. Jack suggested, referring to a small, beautiful venue on Michigan's west coast, near his hometown. It is a bed and breakfast, right on the lake with a garden where they do small ceremonies. My aunt and uncle got married there years ago. It is intimate, just 20 or so guests maximum. The more we talked, the more right it felt. We could have a small ceremony with Jack's family and our closest friends, people who had consistently shown up for us, who understood what we needed on our wedding day. We would tell my mother and Alison afterward, present it as a fait accompli. Do you think Marie would help us? Jack asked. Marie had been my rock through years of Alison situations, always validating my feelings when I doubted myself. Absolutely, I said without hesitation. She has been telling me to set boundaries with Alison for years. By dawn, we had a plan. We would get married in 3 weeks at Starlight Point. Jack would tell his family, swearing them to secrecy. I would confide in Marie and ask for her help coordinating. We would continue to participate in preliminary wedding discussions with my mother, not letting on that we had changed our plans. The next day, I called Marie and asked her to meet for coffee. When I told her our plan, her eyes widened. Are you serious? This is either the most brilliant or the most disastrous idea I have ever heard, she said. Then she grinned. I am 100% in. Marie helped us find a dress off the rack, a simple but elegant sheath dress that needed only minor alterations. Jack's mother, Elizabeth, was surprised by our decision, but immediately supportive. After what I saw at that engagement party, she said during a phone call, I understand completely. This day should be about you two, nothing else. Jack's brothers rearranged their schedules to attend. His father offered to contact a photographer friend who had shot weddings at Starlight Point before. Within days, our small secret wedding was taking shape. Meanwhile, I continued the charade with my mother and Alison. We had a lunch meeting where Mom brought wedding magazines flagged with dozens of sticky notes. I think we should consider blush for the bridesmaids, she said. It would complement both your coloring and Alison's. She had already assumed Alison would be my maid of honor, though I had made no such decision. Alison spent most of the lunch talking about her pregnancy, how she was barely showing because she was naturally so slim, how her doctor had said the baby was already big for its gestational age, how she was considering a water birth because it was what celebrities do. When the conversation finally turned to wedding dates, Alison placed a protective hand over her slight bump. Well, obviously, you will need to work around my due date. The baby is due in April, and I cannot exactly be waddling down the aisle in a bridesmaid dress at 9 months pregnant. I feigned consideration. Of course we will take that into account. Mom nodded approvingly. Perhaps July would be better then. The baby will be a few months old, and Alison will have had time to get back to her pre-pregnancy figure. Alison smiled smugly. Though I will probably be right back in shape within weeks. My trainer says women with my body type bounce back quickly. I smiled and nodded, all while thinking about the dress hanging in Marie's closet and the ceremony that would take place long before Alison's baby arrived. The morning of our wedding day dawned crisp and clear, a perfect late October Saturday in Michigan. Starlight Point was a Victorian-style bed and breakfast perched on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan, surrounded by trees ablaze with autumn colors. Jack and I had arrived the previous evening, with Marie checking into separate rooms for our last night as an unmarried couple. I woke early, a mix of emotions swirling through me. Happiness about marrying Jack. Certainty that we were doing the right thing, but also a lingering sadness that my mother would not be there to see me become a bride. Despite everything, I had always imagined her helping me get ready on my wedding day. Marie arrived at 8 with coffee and pastries. No time for bride jitters, she announced cheerfully. We have got hair and makeup in 30 minutes, and I need you caffeinated and ready. The local stylist Marie had found did a beautiful job creating a simple, elegant updo, weaving small white flowers through my dark hair. My makeup was natural but polished. When I finally slipped into my dress, an ivory column with delicate lace overlay, I hardly recognized myself in the mirror. You look absolutely beautiful, Marie said, her eyes filling with tears. Jack is going to lose his mind when he sees you. The ceremony was set for 1 in the afternoon in the garden behind the bed and breakfast. A small white pergola had been decorated with autumn flowers and greenery. Wooden chairs for our 16 guests were arranged in 2 short rows. Jack's father would walk me down the aisle, a decision that had brought tears to William's eyes when I asked him. As I waited inside, I could see through the window as guests arrived. Jack's brothers and their wives dressed in suits and fall-colored dresses. His mother Elizabeth in a navy dress greeting the justice of the peace. My colleagues from work who had become close friends. Marie's boyfriend Thomas, who had driven up that morning. Everyone looked happy, relaxed, genuinely pleased to be there. I thought about what would have been different had we stuck with our original plan. My mother would have insisted on a church ceremony regardless of our wishes. Alison would have found a way to draw attention to herself, perhaps insisting on special accommodations for her pregnancy. The guest list would have been 3 times as large, filled with distant relatives and my mother's friends who barely knew me. This felt right. These were people who truly cared about Jack and me, who wanted to celebrate our love without agenda or drama. At precisely 1, William knocked gently on my door. "Ready, Sylvia?" he asked, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners, just like Jack's did. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." The small string duo began playing as William and I stepped onto the garden path. Jack stood under the pergola, and the moment our eyes met, everything else faded away. His face lit up with such love and joy that any lingering doubts I had vanished completely. The ceremony was simple and deeply personal. We had written our own vows, promises not just of love, but of partnership, respect, and unwavering support. When Jack spoke of creating a home where I would always be valued and heard, I knew he was speaking not just of our physical home, but the emotional space between us. "I promise to always see you," he said, his voice steady and sure. "To celebrate your victories as my own, to guard your happiness as fiercely as you deserve." My vows acknowledged the journey we were beginning. "I promise to build with you a life based on truth and mutual respect. To create with you a family defined not by blood, but by love and genuine support." As we exchanged rings, I felt a sense of peace I had rarely experienced. This moment was entirely ours, unspoiled by family dynamics or old patterns. When the justice of the peace pronounced us husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in genuine joyful applause. The reception was held in the bed and breakfast dining room, transformed with flowers and candles into an intimate celebration space. We shared a meal, laughed through heartfelt toasts, and cut a small but beautiful cake. Jack and I had our first dance on the stone patio overlooking the lake, the setting sun turning the water to gold. It was perfect, because it was authentic. Every person there was genuinely happy for us, every moment, untainted by underlying tensions or competing agendas. We had decided not to immediately tell my mother and Alison about the wedding. We would return to Chicago, settle into married life for a few days, and then break the news in person. We hoped that presenting it as a happy fait accompli might diffuse some of the inevitable drama. The plan might have worked had it not been for social media. Despite asking guests not to post anything about the wedding until we gave the go-ahead, Jack's youngest brother's wife Sarah accidentally shared a photo of us cutting the cake with the caption, "Congratulations to the newlyweds, Howard Jack and Sylvia wedding," late that night. By morning, my phone was exploding with notifications. Alison had seen the post through a mutual connection and had immediately called me, leaving a voicemail so full of rage I could barely make out the words. "How could you, behind our backs? After everything we have done for you, Mom is devastated." Texts followed, growing increasingly furious. "Answer your phone right now. I cannot believe you would humiliate us like this. Is this because of what I said at the engagement party? Are you that petty?" My mother's voicemail was quieter but no less upset. "Sylvia, I do not understand. All I ever wanted was to see my daughter get married. How could you take that away from me? Please call me as soon as you get this." Jack and I had planned to stay one more night at Starlight Point, but faced with the barrage of messages, we decided to drive back to Chicago that day. Better to face the situation head-on than let it fester. "Are you okay?" Jack asked as we loaded our bags into his car. I took a deep breath. Actually, yes. I am not happy they are upset, but I do not regret what we did. For once I put myself first, and it felt right. He squeezed my hand. I am proud of you, and whatever happens next, we will face it together. We arrived home late that afternoon to find both my mother and Alison waiting outside our apartment building, Alison pacing furiously while my mother sat rigid on a bench. Here we go, I murmured to Jack as we parked. The moment Alison spotted us, she stormed toward our car, not even waiting for us to fully exit before she started. How dare you! She shouted, her face flushed with anger. How could you do something so selfish, so thoughtless? My mother approached more slowly, her expression a mask of hurt and disappointment. Sylvia, she said, her voice trembling, I have spent 31 years dreaming of seeing my daughter walk down the aisle. Jack stepped slightly in front of me, a subtle but clear gesture of protection. Why do not we continue this conversation upstairs? He suggested, his tone firm but calm. This is not something to discuss on the street. Reluctantly, they followed us to our apartment. Once inside, Alison resumed her tirade. You deliberately excluded us. Your own family. What kind of person does that? I took a deep breath, determined to remain composed. Alison, Mom, I understand you are hurt and surprised. That was not our intention. We decided to have a small private ceremony that felt right for us. Without your mother, without your sister. Mom's voice cracked. I would have done anything to be there, Sylvia. Anything. Even put me first for once. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Mom looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? I have always put my daughters first. No, Mom. You have always put Alison first. My entire life, my moments have been overshadowed, pushed aside, or forgotten because of her. Alison scoffed. Oh, please, not this again. Just because I have a more magnetic personality does not mean it has nothing to do with your personality. I interrupted, surprising myself with my firmness. It is about your behavior. It is about deliberately stealing focus during moments that should be about someone else, like announcing your pregnancy at my engagement party. That was a coincidence, Alison protested, though her eyes slid away from mine. I was excited and wanted to share with family. And the sorry I stole the spotlight again comment. Was that a coincidence too? Jack asked quietly. Alison faltered, clearly not expecting to be called out so directly. My mother looked between us, frowning. Alison, did you really say that? Before Alison could respond, I continued, feeling years of suppressed feelings finally finding voice. It was not a one-time thing, Mom. It is a pattern that has been happening my entire life. My 16th birthday rescheduled for her dance competition, missing my graduation because of her so-called car accident. Every milestone, every achievement somehow becomes about Alison. That is ridiculous, Mom said, but with less conviction. Those were circumstances beyond anyone's control. Were they? I challenged. Because from where I stand, they look like calculated moves to ensure Alison always gets the attention. Alison's eyes filled with tears, but they seemed more from anger than hurt. This is so unfair. I cannot help it if things happen to coincide with your events. Things do not happen to coincide, Alison. You make them coincide. And I have spent my entire life accepting it, making excuses for it, forgiving it. But I will not do it with my wedding. That day was about Jack and me, our commitment to each other. No drama, no competition, just love. My mother turned to Jack, perhaps hoping to find an ally. Jack, surely you understand how hurtful this is. How could you go along with excluding us? Jack looked her directly in the eye, his voice steady. Mrs. Davis, I love your daughter. I have watched her struggle with the dynamic in this family. Our wedding day was not about excluding anyone. It was about creating a space where Sylvia could truly be the focus of her own major life event, where she did not have to worry about being overshadowed or interrupted. That is absurd, Alison cut in. You make it sound like I am some attention-hungry monster. Jack did not rise to the bait. I am not here to characterize your behavior, Alison. I am here to support my wife. The word wife hung in the air, a reminder of what had already transpired, what could not be undone. I cannot believe you would cast me as the villain in your life, Alison said, her voice cracking. After everything I have been through. Do you know Marcus left me when I told him about the baby? Do you know I have been pretending everything is fine while my life falls apart? But sure, make this about your precious wedding. The revelation stunned me. Marcus left. Why did not you tell me? As if you care, Alison snapped. You have been so wrapped up in your perfect life with your perfect fiancé, husband, whatever. You have no idea what I have been dealing with. Mom gasped. Alison, you told me Marcus was away on business. You said he was thrilled about the baby. Alison's composure crumbled entirely. I lied, okay? He said he was not ready to be a father, that he never wanted kids with me, that he had been planning to end things anyway. My mother moved to Alison's side, putting an arm around her. Oh, sweetheart, why did not you tell us? The familiar scene played out, Alison in crisis, my mother rushing to comfort her, my concerns forgotten. But this time I refused to let it happen. I am sorry about Marcus, truly, I said. That is awful, and you deserve support. But do you see what is happening right now? Even in this conversation about my wedding, the focus has shifted to you. Sylvia, my mother admonished, your sister is going through a terrible time. And I want to help her through that, I insisted. But not at the expense of my own life moments. For once I need you both to hear me. To really hear me. Jack placed his hand on my shoulder, a silent show of support. Mom, I continued, turning to face her directly. Have you ever noticed how differently you treat Alison and me? How quick you are to excuse her behavior, to rearrange everything for her needs? My mother looked genuinely bewildered. I love both my daughters equally. Loving equally does not mean treating identically, Jack interjected gently. Different people need different things. For a moment no one spoke. Then Alison, in a voice smaller than I had heard from her in years, said, You have always made everything look so easy. I turned to her, surprised. What? Schoolwork, relationships. You always know what you want and how to get it. You have always been the composed one, the successful one. Do you have any idea what it is like living in that shadow? I nearly laughed from the irony. Are you serious? You think I have been overshadowing you? You got straight A's without trying. Dad always bragged about how you were going to run a company someday. You found a great guy who actually respects you. Meanwhile, I am 27 with a failed modeling career, pregnant and alone. So yeah, sometimes I need to remind everyone I exist too. For the first time, I glimpsed a vulnerability in Alison I had never seen before, or perhaps had never been allowed to see. Behind the competition and attention-seeking was insecurity, a fear of not measuring up. Alison, I said carefully, I have never tried to overshadow you. I have just been trying to live my life, to have my moments like everyone deserves. And I have been trying to live mine, she shot back. But yours always seems to work out better. Jack cleared his throat. Can I say something? When no one objected, he continued. It sounds like there have been a lot of comparisons in this family. But success is not a zero-sum game. Sylvia's happiness does not diminish Alison's, or vice versa. Mom sank into a chair, suddenly looking very tired. I never meant to favor one of you over the other, she said quietly. I guess I always thought Sylvia was so capable, so self-sufficient. Alison seemed to need more attention. And that became a pattern, I said. The more self-sufficient I was, the less you felt I needed you. The more Alison acted out, the more you focused on her. Alison wiped tears from her eyes. I did not do it on purpose, at least not all the time. She looked away, the closest she had ever come to admitting her behavior. And I did try to get Jack's attention. Last summer at the lake house. I knew it was wrong, but I was jealous. He never even looked twice at me. The admission shocked me, though part of me had suspected as much. Jack squeezed my shoulder. I have only ever had eyes for Sylvia, he said simply. Alison nodded, looking embarrassed. I know. That is how I knew he was actually good enough for her. We sat in silence for a few moments, the tension in the room gradually shifting from anger to a wary exhaustion. Finally, my mother spoke. I have not been fair to you, Sylvia. I see that now. I think I always saw so much of myself in Alison, the need for validation, for attention. And so much of your father in you, the quiet strength, the independence. After he died, maybe I held on too tightly to the part of him I saw in you, but not in the right ways. It was more self-awareness than I had ever heard from my mother. So what happens now? Alison asked. You are married. I am having a baby. Are we just supposed to pretend everything is fine? No, I said. But maybe we can start being honest with each other. Really honest. And maybe we can try to build something healthier. The month following our confrontation was a time of slow, tentative healing. After years of suppressed feelings and unhealthy dynamics, none of us expected overnight transformation. But there was at least a new awareness, a willingness to acknowledge the patterns that had damaged our relationships for so long. Mom suggested we try family therapy, surprising me with her openness to the idea. I want to understand how we got here, she said during our first session, and I want to do better. Dr. Levine, a family therapist with a warm but no-nonsense manner, helped us navigate conversations we should have had years ago. In one particularly difficult session, Mom admitted that after my father died, she had channeled her grief into controlling what she could, namely, family dynamics. Thomas always balanced me, she explained, tears in her eyes. He could see when I was being unfair or playing favorites. Without him, I lost that perspective. Alison's pregnancy progressed, and with it came the humbling reality of impending single motherhood. The facade of perfect life she had maintained began to crumble as she faced practical considerations, finances, childcare support systems. For perhaps the first time, she found herself needing help and having to ask for it directly, rather than manufacturing crises. I do not know how to do this, she confessed during a rare moment of vulnerability when she and I met for lunch. I always thought I would have everything figured out before having a baby. Nobody has everything figured out, I told her. Not even me. She smiled wryly. You could have fooled me. Jack and I settled into married life, finding our rhythm as a couple now legally bound. We decided to keep our small apartment for another year, saving for a down payment on a condo, where we could eventually start a family of our own. The wedding we had originally planned was canceled, deposits forfeited without regret. Instead, we held a casual reception at a local restaurant for those who had not attended our Michigan ceremony, including some of my mother's close friends. Alison attended, visibly pregnant by then, but made a conscious effort not to make the event about her. When people asked about the baby, she kept her answers brief and redirected the conversation back to the celebration at hand. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about her efforts to change. Our fragile new understanding was tested in December when Alison developed pregnancy complications that required bed rest. Mom immediately moved into Alison's apartment to care for her, falling back into familiar patterns of hovering attention. It feels like nothing has changed, I vented to Jack one evening. The moment Alison needs something, everything else gets put on hold. Jack, ever the voice of reason, reminded me. She does need help right now medically. That is different from the attention-seeking behaviors we were addressing. He was right, of course. And when I visited Alison bringing books and magazines to help with the boredom of bed rest, I saw genuine gratitude in her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. I know things are still weird between us. They are getting less weird, I offered, sitting on the edge of her bed. One day at a time. As her due date approached, Alison asked if I would be her birthing partner. Mom will be too nervous, she explained. And there is no one else I trust. The request touched me deeply. Are you sure? It is a pretty intimate experience. She nodded. I am sure. You are the most level-headed person I know. If anything goes wrong. Her hand moved protectively over her belly. "Nothing will go wrong," I assured her. "But yes, I will be there." On a snowy January morning, I got the call. Alison was in labor 2 weeks early, but progressing normally. I met her at the hospital, helped her through the admission process, and stayed by her side through 14 hours of labor. It was an experience unlike any other, seeing my sister at her most vulnerable, most authentic. There was no room for pretense in the delivery room, no energy for competition or performance, just raw human effort, and ultimately, the miracle of birth. When my niece entered the world at 3:17 a.m., red-faced and screaming with healthy lungs, Alison gripped my hand so tightly I thought my fingers might break. "She is beautiful," I whispered, tears streaming down my face as the nurses placed the tiny bundle on Alison's chest. "You did it, Ali." Alison looked up at me, exhausted but radiant. "I could not have done it without you," she said. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave you every reason to." In that moment, something shifted between us, a healing more profound than any therapy session could provide. Watching Alison become a mother, seeing her face transform with love for her daughter, I glimpsed the sister I had always wished for, but rarely seen. She named the baby Grace Elizabeth Grace. She said for the second chance she felt she was getting at life. And Elizabeth after Jack's mother, who had shown remarkable kindness to Alison despite knowing the family history. Over the following weeks, as Alison adjusted to motherhood, I saw changes in her that seemed to run deeper than mere circumstance. The constant need for validation began to fade as she found purpose in caring for Grace. Her social media posts, once carefully curated to portray a perfect life, became more authentic, showing the exhaustion and messiness of new motherhood alongside the joy. Mom, too, evolved in her new role as grandmother. She remained involved but made conscious efforts not to take over, to respect Alison's parenting decisions, even when they differed from what she would have done. And me, I learned that setting boundaries did not mean cutting ties. That speaking my truth did not have to destroy relationships. In fact, it could ultimately strengthen them. Most importantly, I learned that breaking generational patterns required not just awareness, but constant conscious effort from everyone involved. 6 months after our confrontation, Jack and I hosted a family dinner in our apartment. Mom brought her famous lasagna. Alison arrived with Grace, now a chubby, smiling 5-month-old, who delighted in being passed from one adoring adult to another. As we sat around our table, far from perfect but genuinely trying, I caught Jack's eye across the room. He winked, a silent acknowledgement of how far we had come. Later that night, as we cleaned up, Jack asked, "Do you regret it, the way we got married?" I considered the question carefully. "No," I said finally. "It was what we needed at the time. It was the first step towards something healthier for everyone." He nodded, pulling me close. "I am proud of you, you know. Standing up for yourself but also being willing to rebuild." I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. The hardest part was realizing that my family was never going to be what I had always hoped for, but that maybe we could build something new, something better than before. The journey of healing family wounds is never truly complete. There are still moments when old patterns threaten to resurface, when Alison seeks attention inappropriately, when Mom favors her needs over mine, when I retreat into resigned silence rather than speaking up. But now at least we recognize these moments for what they are. We have the language to address them, the tools to navigate them. Perhaps the most profound realization in this journey has been that true healing rarely follows the path we expect. Sometimes it requires breaking before rebuilding. Sometimes it demands a period of separation before reunification. And almost always it asks us to redefine our expectations, not lowering them, but transforming them into something that accommodates imperfect, complex human beings doing their best. There is freedom in this understanding. Freedom from the exhaustion of trying to maintain impossible family myths. Freedom from the bitter disappointment when reality fails to match our idealized vision. In their place grows something more sustainable: compassion, boundaries, and the quiet knowledge that loving someone does not mean accepting harmful behavior. I think about this often when I watch Alison with Grace, seeing her determined to break the cycle to raise a daughter who feels secure in her mother's love without needing to perform for it. I see it in my mother's careful efforts to distribute her attention more equitably to catch herself when old habits resurface. And I feel it in myself, the lightness that comes with finally stepping into my own light, unapologetically claiming space in my own life story. Perhaps that is the greatest gift Jack gave me, not just his love, but his unwavering belief that I deserve to be seen. Maybe true growth is not about becoming someone new, but about finding the courage to be who you have always been, to stand firmly in your truth even when others cannot yet see it. There is power in that stance, a quiet dignity that cannot be diminished by anyone else's need to shine. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice that hurt someone you loved in the short term, but ultimately led to healthier relationships? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories of growth and transformation, and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family is not just okay, it might be the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember, your story matters too.